The following telephone recordings are from August 1976, with supplemental material from 1971, 72, and 75. The narration was done in March 2016.
201-475-4969.
Welcome to New Jersey, Belvedere, the NX1, which serves as the local office for a territory that goes up against the river. It is also the toll center, the long-distance tandem for this whole part of New Jersey, served by the West Jersey Telephone Company. Now, my first phone trip was in the summer of 1970 coming back from summer camp, and I just happened to stop at a town east of here, Oxford, in this same West Jersey phone company, so it's good to be back. Now, unless I'm mistaken, this is the only NX1 I've ever found that has a busy signal like the one you're going to hear in a minute. In an attempt to get a vacant code recording, I dialed 311. When it didn't go through, I tried to hang up and redial, and, well, you know what happened. This is really unusual because not only is it just one tone, but it's not one of the two tones that make up a normal modern busy signal. This is just 500 hertz by itself. You'd expect 480. We occasionally would see modern busy signals and reorders that just had one of the two tones connected. An example would be Edson Avenue in the Bronx.
ESS reorder is 480 and 620. However, sometimes it's just 480. 212379 is an example.
Now that is 480. This from Belvedere is more like 500. Here's 311 working more the way it's supposed to. It's apparently some kind of a test dial tone, but I wasn't able to get it to do anything. I touch-toned 1 through 0, got no response, tried flashing, and it immediately went to the busy signal. Oh well. Now, the West Jersey Phone Company has a number of offices, and each of them has a recording ID code that begins with 1 and has another digit. For example, this office, Belvedere, is 14, and if I can ever get a vacant code recording, you'll hear it. That was 811 doing absolutely nothing. I tried 660, but, well, that's not enough digits, I guess. Here's 660 plus 4 digits. Maybe that'll get us the vacant code recording.
I am sorry, we are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording, 14. I am sorry, we are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording, 14. I am sorry.
Oxford, a step in the local area, is 12. Here's an Oxford vacant level. I'll dial 453-0111. You'll hear some fast NX1 pulsing as it gets the connection to the outgoing trunk. That sounds like this. And then it dials out the last 4 digits. But in this example that we're about to do, there's crosstalk from dialing on another call, so you can't hear the digits very clearly. It's our call plus the digits from some other call combined, so it's kind of a mess. There are other examples where you can hear the dial pulsing clearer later on.
sorry, the number you have reached is changed or not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 1-2. I'm sorry, the number you have reached is changed or not in service at this time.
The recording's been redone since I was first here in 1970, but I actually made a composite of how it sounded the first time, which you can hear in How I Became a Phone Freak Part 2, just so that I would get it exactly right. But anyway, here's another call to Oxford, this time to a supervision test. You know, I'm not sure what kind of a trunk that is, but it is something independent for sure. It's not T-carrier, and it's probably one of those nondescript carrier systems that runs over open wire. The supervision sounds really interesting, very carrier-like. Meanwhile, the tones have kind of a dry dullness that you would only hear on T-carrier or one of those nondescript independent types that don't use 2600 signaling and don't use companding. Here's a vacant level in Columbia 496. On this upcoming call, you can hear the Belvedere NX1 very clearly, dialing the last four digits 0111 into the Columbia trunk.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is changed or not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 1-5. I'm sorry, the number you have reached is changed or not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 1-5. I'm sorry.
So 15 is Columbia 496. Now let's try to get a working number, specifically a supervision test with the last digits 99. I'll try dialing 496-3299. The 32 is a very commonly assigned 100 group. And if that goes to the vacant level recording, I'll try 4099.
Five.
Hard to tell what kind of carrier that was. It was definitely not a wire trunk. Maybe that one was T-carrier, but the tape just doesn't have enough details for me to know. One of the tributaries is in Pennsylvania, 498. I'm getting no response, but one of those digits was short. Okay, that was 2 rings on a trunk, not a line. You can tell because after I dialed the last digit, it did this. So was that about to go to the recording? Maybe. Had it been a line, it would have sounded like this. Right, so I've dialed 498-0111 and gotten 2 rings on what is not a line. That doesn't tell us anything, really. It could be that 498 is handled out of this same NX1, and that a little part of the territory across the river is served by this same CO. It could be a separate CO, but the 0,000 group is invalid, so it gets intercepted here. All I know is that I called 4980111 and started to ring, not a line, but a trunk, possibly intercept. So hopefully the stops ahead in Oxford and Great Meadows will shed some more light on what 498 really is. Here's dialing 0 and nothing else. You'll hear another customer touch toning in the background. That's just crosstalk from another rego. When the call does start to go through, you'll hear, among other things, the NX1 billing clicks. When you hear that calling the operator, it indicates that they have TSD, Traffic Service Desk, in this switch. That's the NX1 system for 0 plus dialing. Here's 0. And the tape ran out. But you heard it starting to go through. All right, here's 411. Right after you hear me dial 4, you'll hear another customer on another rego. Dialing 4. Didn't give the operator time to answer, I see. Or maybe that was going to intercept. You can't tell because all it takes is one bad trunk to the intercept recording where it rings but never gets around to talking, and you can't tell whether you have an unanswered operator or just a bad recording trunk, and I didn't try again. You know, I hate to use this expression, but when it came to recording this place, I was really phoning it in. Okay, sorry, I'll never say that again. Here's dialing my own number, which on NX1s gives you ringback with a nice introductory recording.
You have dialing number on your own party line. Please hang up your receiver and the call telephone will ring. Allow sufficient time for the call party to answer. Pick up your receiver and begin your conversation. This is a recording. You have dialing number on your own party line. Please hang up your receiver and the call telephone will ring. Allow sufficient time for the call party to answer. Pick up your receiver and begin your conversation. This is a recording. You have dialing.
Hope 459, recording ID 18, is another NX1, and this office MFs to it.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached has changed and not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording, 18. I'm sorry, the number you have reached has changed and not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording, 18. I'm sorry.
Each of the calls to Hope features an interesting little effect that's happening, and I don't know why, but I've heard this before. Right after the Belvedere NX1 cuts through, there is the sound of an MF digit. We heard it here.
I'm sorry.
That extra tone, in this case, is an MF0, and I have no idea why this is happening. Let's call Hope again.
Recording, 18.
The first time I dialed 0111, and we heard that extra digit, 0.
I'm sorry.
This time I dialed 4599, and we heard a 4. The trunks to the Hope NX1 don't let you hear the NX1 pulsing, but it's going on. Here's another call. This one is to a working number in the 4000 group. This time we again heard an MF4 right after the Belvedere cut-through. So in all three cases, and I only have three, the digit that we hear for no apparent reason is the same as the 1000 group we dialed. This definitely indicates something, but I can't think of any reason why we would hear an MF tone audibly at that point in time. But I feel as if I've heard this in Greenville, North Carolina, dialing from the main NX1 to 756, the office that rings like Hope. I just can't prove it because I'm not sure it's on the tape. Another thing I can't help but notice about this tape is that I'm having a heck of a time keeping the mouthpiece covered quietly. Now, it may be one of those terrible GTE mouthpieces with the big holes in that strange concentric circle pattern. Those were really, really hard to keep covered. Every teensy little move you made was amplified with those. So that may be part of the problem. But I apologize for all the shifting around and traffic noise getting into the recording, and you'll hear more of it on these next two calls. NX1s are famous for not ticketing long-distance directory assistance. When we first got to know NX1s, 555 and 411 in distant area codes went through with no ticket whatsoever. Here I can dial long distance from this phone, and normally an operator will come on and tell me how much I need to deposit, but not on an area code plus 555 or an area code plus 411. Here's trying 555 in area code 212, and you'll hear how it goes right through with no ticketing sound. It went right through, no billing clicks. As soon as I dialed the last digit, it got the outgoing trunk and MF'd the number, and there we were on that trunk. And by the way, that is a direct trunk to New York City. There is no intervening tandem because this little office is the tandem. So we were right on a trunk to New York's borough tandem. With a blue box or a tape of MFs, we could have reset the trunk and made it go somewhere else. Now contrast that to what happens when I dial a 1-800 number. In those days, 800 service was called inward WATS, WATS, for wide area telephone service. Inward WATS does ticket, even though it's free. And TSD, the Zero Plus dialing system here, has a little bit of a problem with 800 numbers. You see, you're supposed to dial 1-800, but if you do it from a payphone, the operator kinda doesn't know what to do. Here's what happens when you dial a 1-800 number here.
Would you dial 0 and then 800 instead of 1, please?
Okay.
Just to highlight the contrast, dialing 555 in a distant area code makes no billing clicks and sends you right out to the world. While dialing a 1+800 number makes the billing clicks and throws you to the operator.
One moment.
411 in a distant area code goes out that same non-ticketing way, but you don't always get directory assistance. Sometimes you'll get a recording from a tandem.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording. 21253. We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording. 21253. We're sorry.
21253. This was the first time in my life that I'd actually heard that recording ID. This is Burro Tandem 4, one of a pair of crossbar tandems owned by New York Telephone, devoted entirely to incoming long-distance calls from certain places. New York Telephone bypasses AT&T and communicates directly with certain connected companies, such as New Jersey Bell, and, as we're seeing here, the West Jersey Telephone Company, because this is going directly through from the Belvedere NX1 to Burro Tandem 4. Now, as New York Telephone is wont to do, they have two crossbar tandems side by side, behaving identically, acting as one big tandem. Now, when I first got to know Burro Tandem, and it wasn't easy because if you're in New York, you never get it. You have to be calling back into New York from somewhere that's not too far away, but also not too close. Anyway, both tandems, Burro 3 and Burro 4, had this recording originally.
This is a recording. 212. I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. 212. I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed.
This is from when they had a lower quality recording of that same master tape on.
This is a recording. 2129.
Now, to get that, I had to do some unusual things because I lived in the New York area. I definitely needed my ARP Odyssey synthesizer, and to do it the way I'm about to, also the setup to juice the line. For an explanation of all this stuff, see the program called Hi-Fi 914, Parts 1 and 2. Anyway, with my synthesizer and juicing switch ready, the first step is to call Poughkeepsie. From a Lynbrook, Long Island Crossbar 5 line, that goes through White Plains Tandem 1, and I'm going to get an N1 carrier trunk, which I will juice off. There, now White Plains is waiting for digits. Let's just dial a vacant code to verify that this is White Plains Tandem 1.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording. 9144. We're sorry.
Yep, I've reset it again, and now I'm going to do key pulse 022 start. That's the routing code for the Kingston, New York Crossbar 5 tandem with no digits following. White Plains 1 stacks. We've now been dumped into Kingston, which is waiting for our digits. Here I'm going to call a number in New York City. This is a panel exchange, but I'm not going to give enough digits at the end of the number. It'll just be the exchange plus one digit. Pardon me, I've got to start this so it doesn't time out. This will cause Kingston to put the call through Burro Tandem 3, which will start to communicate with the panel, but find it can't continue the process, and dump us into the P recording.
We're sorry, but because of a temporary equipment condition, your call did not go through. Will you please hang up and try again? This is a recording. 2129. We're sorry, but because of a temporary equipment condition...
And that's the sort of thing I would typically do to see Burro Tandem at all, if you live in New York. But today we're in Belvedere, New Jersey, where all of New York City calls are sent to the two Burro Tandems, 3 and 4. Now, as I said, this is the first time I heard 21253, literally the last recording ID in the list of New York recording IDs. Considering that Burro Tandem 4 was installed in 1955, that seems a little strange, but there's a reason. It just had to do with the rivalry between New York Tel and AT&T. It's kind of an interesting story if you have the kind of mind that draws maps of switching machines in different locations and all that kind of stuff. I'll explain how that happened for what it's worth at the end of this program. So there's one more call I made from the Belvedere NX1, and that was to dial 0 in front of an 800 number. This call is to a touchtone interface system. It's owned by a company called Realtron. They no longer exist, although the name, as you might expect, has been since recycled a bit. It was in the southeastern Michigan area. They apparently were dealing in fairly pricey real estate and were using this system to get prices and other information about various properties. They had a 5-digit security code, also referred to as a security number. The codes we knew about were 12345, 11111, and 11145. On this call, I try entering that code plus some other digits just to make it repeat back what I dialed in, but that security code was withdrawn. Now, by dialing 0 in front of the 800 number from here, no, it doesn't send it through without the operator. It goes ahead and puts the operator on, and then leaves her on the line through the call, despite the fact that there is no need for an operator on an 800 call at all. This is a symptom, by the way, of how rare 800 numbers were in this time. In fact, the only reason anyone had even heard of them was because of the Sheraton reservation number.
Why not skip winter? Skip to Sheraton in the Caribbean by calling... Call it for a reservation in the sun at one of 5 great Sheratons. Nassau, Venezuela, Aruba, Puerto Rico, or Jamaica. Or at any Sheraton in the world. Call it, or have your travel agent call it for you.
800 numbers were somewhat known about by the general public. Touchtone interface devices? Absolutely not.
What special service do you wish?
What?
Thank you.
Security number withdrawn.
Anyway, I've now played everything we recorded from Belvedere. The next stop is the Step in Oxford, which was where my first phone trip was. And then after that, there's a stop in Great Meadows, very similar to Oxford. So that's it for this stop. But wait, there's more about various subjects. First of all, Realtron. The Realtron system was actually the first touchtone interactive system that we had ever encountered. To give you an idea of what it would have done had that security code still worked, here's a recording from 1971 of doing the same thing.
Not properly received. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 8.
One creepy thing about Realtron was, well, besides the hum and the voice, if you gave it a line of digits to repeat back, but you entered a lot of stars in the line, you would very often get it to repeat back the stuff that was left in a buffer from a previous call. So you would get mysterious numbers and words. If you entered a string of stars longer than the stuff left in the buffer from the past call, it would say the word request for every unused spot. So basically you'd get a whole bunch of numbers and letters, and then at the end it would go request, 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 like this.
Not properly received. 4, 5, 0, 9, 0, 0, 0, C, 0, third, E, listing, magic, C, 3, L, E, L, resume, third, E, third, 18, E, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9,
In the early and mid-70s, systems like this were only known about and used by people on the inside of some organization. The general public didn't use them. The biggest problem was that not enough people had touch-tone phones, so it just wasn't introduced as something that most people know about. The first case I know of general public use of a touch-tone interactive device was in Atlanta in 1981 when one of the savings and loans offered a crude bank-by-phone system, and it sounded like hell. Here's using it with their demonstration account code 12345678.
Good morning. Fulton Federal Cash Action. Please enter your account number and depress pound sign key. Please enter your personal identification number and depress pound sign key. Vendor number 1234. Amount $5,678.90. Pay on February 6th. If transaction is correct, depress pound sign key. Otherwise, depress asterisk key to cancel transaction.
That is so not cool. But at least it's simple and understandable, isn't it? And it even has the convention of star to go back, pound to enter. Isn't it amazing that the industry hasn't figured out that that ought to be a universal yet? So that sounded like hell, but in the early 70s, for non-general public use, there actually were some cool-sounding systems.
1-0-1-0-9-5-1-9-2-4-5-0-9-A-A-5-1-0-4-9-3-9.
This was on an 800-241 number. It was in Atlanta in the Buckhead Crossbar 5. We never knew what this system did or what the company, Computone, did. All we knew is that if you called up and dialed 1010 and more digits, it would repeat them all back to you in this very familiar voice.
9A-B-B-A-900. Please continue.
There was one time that I called that number and I just clicked into a session already in progress that had been abandoned by one of the legitimate callers. I don't remember what it was saying, but it was just one phrase after another, each one a half-second long, but it was more than just numbers. It was words in that cool IBM voice, same as the Brooklyn, Washington, and New Jersey semi-automatic intercept systems. The reason that happened is that there was a flaw in the network involving number 1 and number 5 crossbar that, if it were happening today, would be scandalous. Here's what it was. If you receive a call on crossbar 1 or crossbar 5 and the person you're talking to hangs up and you stay off hook, and then somebody else calls and gets the exact same trunk dialing your number, they pop right into your line. Now that 800 number was handled by a crossbar 5 in Buckhead, Atlanta, and incoming trunks from the Atlanta 4A were picked in order, so there was a very high likelihood of re-seizing the same trunk. Therefore, anyone who just hung up on a session while it was still off hook and talking ran a very high risk of someone else coming in, dialing the same number, and just plopping into his session.
Please continue.
You know what? That's on N1 carrier.
Please continue.
And it means something that I had not realized and wouldn't have noticed during the 1970s. That was recorded from Larry's house. Larry, the guy with the Franklin 4 number. Larry's Crossbar 5 was the only place I had access to that sent 800 numbers to White Plains Tandem 2
9141
over N1 carrier, and that is on N1 carrier. So I definitely recorded that from Larry's house, and I didn't realize it until March 2016. Now, as a practical matter, what difference does it make whether 800 numbers go out on N1 carrier to White Plains 2, or whether they go out on a wire trunk to Hempstead Tandem 3? Well, it's not just technical. It changes the feel of everything. When you dial a long-distance call, and the call starts to go through, it's kind of like a gate opening up revealing a road that you can look down to the end of. Now, when a scene like that opens up, you feel things. If you're looking down a country lane on a cool, sunny day, you're going to feel one set of things. If, on the other hand, you're looking down a wide boulevard that goes through an industrial part of a city, you're going to feel something different. Well, in 1971, the beginning of an 800 call is really different from my parents' line than it is from Larry's line. I'll show you. Just notice how this feels. I'll start from the end of the dialing. How does this feel? Now our touchtone interface has answered. How did that feel when it first opened up? Let me play it again and I'll make a few comments. This is a really nice day. Lovely, refreshing. This feels like nature, not a city. Now this is from my parents' phone, wire trunks to Hempstead Tandem 3, a crossbar tandem that lets you hear the tones, so you have all that beauty. From Larry's house, it's N1 carrier to a 4A, doesn't let you hear the tones, so it feels very different. Here's the same thing from Larry's house. How does this feel? And all of Larry's 800 calls went out this way. It's really cool too, it's just different. Let me just repeat that. Notice especially the eerie sound of the N1 carrier, which is the first carrier noise we hear before the long distance noise comes on. Oh no.
Long from 5900 plus. Repeat. Long from 5900 plus. Check from 315. Kelly, office code Mary James 2. Repeat. Mary James 2. Ida from area 758. No such rate. Repeat. No such rate. Check. Office desk 99X. Repeat. Office desk 99X. Please continue.
Oh, what now? Any ideas? Holy No, I'm just kidding. That was total BS. It happened once, for real, in 1971. I don't remember the kind of thing it said. It didn't tick on the silence like that, but I've heard other systems do that. But it did pretty much sound like that. I just don't remember what it was saying, and what I just did there was total hooey. But I wanted to give you the idea of what it was like in those days when suddenly you could just be dialing the number and that could happen. Anyway, in the early 1970s, which is what the Realtron and Computone recordings are from, they're both from 71, the coolest sounding interactive systems were the rate quote systems that the operators used, accessible only through the network, on the code 009, and you would MF to control them. Those go in a separate program, and that's going to be a challenge for me. I've got to present a program that's all about these cool devices that just say things like
Root area plus 0 set 8 plus area plus 0 set 8 plus.
And
Short. Operator. Redial.
what about a tall operator?
No coin. Code 516 plus.
And then there were the Cognitronics ones, the old one in New Jersey.
NJ1 O. Repeat. NJ1 O.
And the new one for Northwestern Bell.
290 coin person.
Not to mention
Local no charge. Southern Bell. Test, test, test.
So, how did Burrow Tandem 4, installed in 1955, end up with the last recording ID in the list? Well, it had to do with a recorded announcement machine that they had on order but was delayed for years, plus the capriciousness of AT&T long lines. In 1972, I actually got a copy of the list of recording IDs that the phone company used. And to my surprise, Burrow Tandem 4 showed up on that list as 21210. Of course, by then I knew from experience that both Burrow Tandems were
2129.
The list also revealed that Hempstead was supposed to have 4 recording IDs, 5164, 5, 6, and 7, for each of its 4 crossbar tandems. In fact, the 4 of them had been sharing 2 of those, 5166 for tandems 2 and 3, 5167 for tandems 1 and 4. Now, Tom Duffy, the security agent, had introduced me to a supervisor at Hempstead Tandem 3, Pat Behan. This was great because every time I found a trouble in the long-distance network, I could call Pat and get it fixed. There were a number of troubles that I found that Pat did get fixed when I told him. It was a really good thing Duffy did to introduce me to Pat, and no, it didn't cost the company any revenue. But anyway, when I asked Pat Behan about those recording IDs, he said that the 2 additional recording machines were on order and had just taken years and hadn't arrived yet, that it was just one of those things that had been put off indefinitely. Seems like Burrow Tandem 4 was suffering the same fate. It was supposed to be 21210, but they just didn't ship the recording machine, so it shared
2129
with Burrow 3. Now, this situation remained until June 1973. One night, I was playing around on the network with my ARP Odyssey synthesizer, and I found that there was a brand new 4A switch in New York City, and its recorded announcement ID was
21210.
That's right, in spite of the fact that Burrow 4 already had dibs on that ID. Well, I called the test board and found out that this new switch was something called New York 10. It was an AT&T long lines switch, and it was going to take over some of New York Tel's traffic. It also was going to be a second international gateway for New York, so they had big plans for New York 10. Oh, I get it. AT&T thought it would be cute to give New York 10 the recording ID 21210. They knew that Burrow Tandem 4 wasn't using it, so they just snarfed it. And so for the next 3 years, 2129 was for both Burrow Tandems, 21210 was for New York 10. Now, in December 1975, I was playing around with Warwick, New York, and I discovered something. Going through Warwick was a really cool way to call back into New York City and, as it turns out, get Burrow Tandem.
2129
Pathetic. Anyway, I might as well show this to you because excursions through Upper 914 are kind of fun. Now, going through Warwick is a little complicated. I explain it fully in the Warwick and the 914 area series, Program 4. And I won't bore you with a re-explanation on that, but I will tell you what I'm doing here. The first step is to call a number in Warwick, New York, from my Long Island number 5 crossbar line. It goes out on an N1 carrier trunk to White Plains Tandem 1.
9144.
You can then hear White Plains MFing over a 2600 controlled trunk to the Warwick ESC.
You have dialed a non-working number. Please consult your directory or ask your operator for assistance. You have dialed
Now that we're on the trunk to Warwick, I can blow 2600 and Warwick will reset. White Plains will leave the call up because I've got N1 carrier to White Plains. It's not listening for 2600. Warwick is.
your operator for assistance.
The Warwick ESC is now waiting for digits. Unfortunately, this version of it, calling in from White Plains, is restricted, so I can't call New York. But I can call 121 for the inward operator, which Warwick sends to a separate switch for operator services, an NX1 system called TSD for Traffic Service Desk. Once the call starts to go through the TSD, I can reset that switch by beeping 2600. Now I'm in the TSD, which is not restricted, so I'm going to send key pulse 212 start. The TSD will send that to the unrestricted version of the Warwick ESC tandem, which in turn will stack. There we are. We've now gone into a trunk to something in New York City. Let's dial a vacant code to find out what tandem it is.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording, 21210.
21210. Now, wait a minute, that's New York 10, right? But this is a crossbar tandem. Yeah, it's subtle, but that's a crossbar tandem sound going into the recording, so it was pretty clear. Burro Tandem 4's long-awaited recorded announcement machine finally arrived. It had been on order for years, so when they got it, they installed it, and they finally, after all those years, put the recording ID they always wanted, 21210. Well, unfortunately,
21210.
Yeah, that ID is taken now. So for a while, there were two tandems both claiming to be 21210, and today, in Belvedere, we can tell who won that contest. AT&T did, of course. So Burro Tandem 3 ended up with
2129.
and Burro 4 got
21253.
Well, that was a fun and interesting digression, all to explain the origin of a numerical name for a piece of equipment. Anyway, that's it for this rather extended program. The next stop on the August 76 phone trip is Oxford, New Jersey. And to explain all of this stacking and MFing with the ARP Odyssey and juicing stuff, Hi-Fi 914 programs 1 and 2. The explanation of why going through Warwick is such a complicated thing is in Warwick and the 914 area, programs 4 and 5. If you'd like to hear more NX1, our favorite independent switch, to be sure, check out the Greenville, North Carolina series. There are 3 programs. It's Greenville NC by file name. The long name of those programs are NX1 in Greenville, North Carolina.